Good morning, everybody. As we go to the chitas of today, we're holding in the portion of Pekudei. We're holding on chapter. We're holding on chapter 39, verse number 22. As we come to the end of the book of Shemos. He made the robe, the meal, to be worn under the ephod. It was made out of woven klil entirely tcheles. It was made totally out of Turkish wool, like a bluish wool. Upiamiil, the edge, the opening of the meal, of the robe, was folded to beseche. Piamiil beseche kifi tachra. It was folded inwards like a collar of a coat of mail. Safa lefiv, sav of loyakarea. All around its opening was an edging so that it would not rip, like the hole of a talus cotton. It looked like a talus. The meal was like a talus cotton. You put people wear. That's totally like a garment that came around him. But Yasa Shule Amil, on the lower end of the robe, he put the Moine Tcheles, Vagamo Tlashani Vishesh Mozdar. He made these pomegranates out of Turkish wool and of purple and scarlet wool intertwined. They were like these little bulbs, like these pomegranate bulbs of these woven together. Yasib Pami Zav, and besides that, on it he made bells of pure gold. He placed the bells between the pomegranates of in between them. So there was a so all the lower helm, the robe amid the pomegranates. Pamein, there was a bell, and a pomegranate. Pamein, another bell. So it was totally he had on both sides these bells. The shades that when he came into the tabernacle, that's everybody heard him when he was walked around. These bells would ring. As God commanded Moshe. And then he made woven linen tunics. There were tunics for Aaron and his sons, woven tunics, linen. And then he made a turban, a hat. Sheish was made again out of linen. And the linen hats of his sons, and Sheish was all linen. And then he made trousers. Sheish Mazda was also twined linen. Now she says, literally the splendor of hats. It was like a magnificent hat that went above him. Verse 29, Avnate, and then he made a sash, a gaitel, we call today a gaitel. A sash, a gaitel. Sheish Mazda was embroidered out of twined linen, with cheles, also Turkish blue wool, vagaman and purple wool, v'slash shani and scarlet wool. Maisei Reikim was a twine. It was a crafts. Kashitziva Samashmos, God commanded Moshe. Verse 30. Vayasatzit. And then he made this forehead plate for the Kohen Gadol. He had a gold forehead plate. Zovter. It was made out of pure gold. Vayichtav olav michtav tuchichesem. And he inscribed on it, on this gold plate that was on the Kohen Gadol's forehead. It was said, Kodesh Lashem. It was written on it, Kodesh Lashem, holy to God. That was called the tzitz. Verse 31, Vayitna Allah Pesil Tcheles. And they inserted a cord of Turkish wool into it, had it stay on his head. It was again another thing that was tied to his head. Lasam Atzesas Mamaila, to pass over the top of the turban, Kashatziva Semesh Moshe. So this is a long Rashi. In essence, how exactly, it's not clear how exactly the strings, because there was two strings on both sides in the middle. So Rashi said they put his hat on first, and they put the strings over his hat. Lasis Amatzefs the Maila. Now she says, thus by the means of the cords, the forehead plates was placed on the turban like a crown. It is impossible ever to say that the forehead plates itself was upon the turban. As we learned in the Tractate of Kadeshim, Kachim, that the high priest's hair was visible between the forehead and the turban, where they wears tefillin. So you have to realize the Kohen Gadol, had a hat. In front of his hat, he had tefillin. Underneath the tefillin, he had this tzitz. Carried a lot on his head, where he would wear the tefillin, and the forehead plate was worn on the forehead. Thus, the turban was above the forehead plate, the forehead plate below. So what is the meaning on top of his turban? So furthermore, I have another difficulty regarding this here. It says v'yitno ptil tcheles. They put upon it a cord of Turkish wool. While with connection to the command v'samta ois al ptil tcheles, you must place it over the cord of Turkish wool. Therefore, I maintain that the term "the cord of the Turkish wool" refers to the cord in which it to secure the breastplate, the forehead plate into the turban. For the forehead breastplate itself extended only from ear to ear. And how could it secure it in the forehead? There were Turkish wool cords attached to it at the ends, two ends, and in the middle. So there were three cords in which to secure it. So it hung over the turban when it was on his head. So in essence, he put the turban on, put this thing on, and then he took two strings and brought it back to his head, and took the two corner strings and brought it back to his back. So ultimately, this turban, this tzitz was hanging from the turban, from his hat. In the middle, skewered, and it hung over the turban when it was on his head. And the cords were folded so that to each ends, one above on the forehead plate outside the surface, and one below on the surface next to his forehead, and similar in the middle. For in this way it's easy to tie it, and it's not unusual to tie things together in less than 2 threads. Therefore, it says over the cord of the Turkish wool, and in other places upon the cord of the Turkish wool. He would then tie the two ends and each thread all together behind him at the back of his head, and thus placed it over the turban. Do not wonder why Scripture, the Torah, does not say psil tcheles, cords of Turkish wool, because as there were more than one. For we find regarding the breastplate, the ephah yikasos achoshem psil tcheles. Even though it says in a singular, there was more than one string. As I said, it was 3 strings, 2 to the side and 1 in the middle. And there must have been no less than 2 cords for 1 and 2 lower corners in the breastplate, so 2 rings in the breastplate, and then 1 of the shoulder straps. According to the regular manner of tying, there were 4 cords, but in any case, it was possible there was impossible there were less than 2 by the ephod. So by the ephod there were 4 cords. Over here there were 3 cords. Verse number 2. All the work of the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and its furnishing was completed. Yasu b'nei Yisrael, and the Jewish people did whatever God commanded Moshe, Kain asu, this is what they did. Now she says, Yasu b'nei Yisrael, exactly in the manner that God had commanded Moshe Rabbeinu. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are holding in the middle of chapter 37 of Tanya. The Rebbe went on to explain that when a Jew does his avodah through machshava, dibur, ma'aser, through his learning and his davening and his actions, he transforms his animal soul. And by doing it through his body, he transforms all the food that he ate. And by doing it that way, he transforms the world ultimately, because there's many aspects that are involved in the making of this food. That's how we ended yesterday. Once the totality of the vital soul of the community of Israel will become a chariot for God, then the general vitality of this world, that now consists of klippus nega, it's all, unless it's prohibited, but it's all a concept of something that could be elevated. That's called klippus nega. Klippus nega is a concept that could be elevated to kedusha, called a covering that shines, means that has the capacity and the capability to shine. She klippus nega achshav, it's all klippa, a covering that shines. Teitzei oz mitumase v'chalase, will emerge from its impurity and its sickness. The term impurity refers to the evil of klippa. Sickness refers to the element of good that the klippa contains, that is sick, which is nevertheless the good of klippa, not holiness, and therefore it's sick. Tala l'kedusha, and it will ascend to holiness. And what does it mean it will ascend to holiness? Lias mekavel avaya. It'll become, everything will become a chariot for God. This galus kevode, upon the revelation of His glory, which will happen be'ezat Hashem in the world to come when Mashiach comes. That at the time of Mashiach, as the Alter Rebbe already said, he brings down the verse, "V'ro kol basar yachdav," that all flesh will behold the godliness together. V'yafi aleim bahar gidyon uzay, and it will appear over them with His majestic beauty. V'yamalei kved avayis kol haaretz, and His power and His glory of God will fill the whole world. Yisrael yiru ayin b'ayin, and the Jewish people will see, to so to say, eye to eye, meaning the human eye will see the truth of godliness just as the supernal eye sees it. Matan Torah, just as it happened at the giving of Torah. By Matan Torah, the Torah it says, das, you showed yourself so that it will be known, Hashem hu Elokim, that God is our Lord. Literally, the 4 letters of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Hu Elokim. See, it's an interesting expression. Yud Kei Vav Kei is Elokim. You showed at Matan Torah how the infinite and the finite is one thing, despite the concealment of the 4 letters of God's name, which denotes God's limited power. By the name Elokim, which signifies God's self-limitation, its former will still pervade all existence. Ein oid movade. There's nothing else besides Him. That's it. We'll see true existence. Where revelation at Sinai lasted only a short time, the revelation of future will be permanent. That's the difference. Matan Torah lasted for a very short time. 40 days later, they sinned. Mashiach comes, will be nitzchis. And through this ascent of a klippus nega to holiness, the 3 unclean kippahs will utterly be annihilated and nullified. Why? Because the nature, because the nurture and vitality for which they now receive from holiness comes to them only by the way of klippus nega, the intermediary between them. And then klippus nega will be elevated, so they won't be able to receive any vitality anymore. So klippus nega contains both good and evil, is the medium between these klippus negative, which are completely evil, and receive vitality from godliness through klippus nega. Through that we do things, everything we do is a mixture of good and bad. But Mashiach comes, will get rid of the bad, only be good. So klippus, so nothing, the other side won't have existence, which is completely good. When the klippus nega ascends to godliness, the impure klippa no longer have any access to God's vitality, ceases to exist. That's it. Like, doesn't have any existence. Nimtza So it follows the purpose of the Messianic era and the resurrection of the dead, namely the revelation of his glory and divinity. It's in the banishment of the spirit of impurity on the earth. Is entirely dependent on our drawing down this his godliness and blessed and him save the nefesh achiyunish bechlolos Yisrael b'rachor upon the 248 limbs of this vital soul of all of Israel. By the way of our vital soul, all the world will be suffused in this godliness. Through ultimately by our vital soul performance of 248 positive commandments. And this purpose is also dependent on our banishing the spirit of impurity, meaning the three impure clippers. By the impure from the vital of the soul of all Israel. By banishing the vital soul, the spirit of impurity is banished from the entire world. And this is accomplished by the vital soul's observance of 365 negative commandments, thus preventing the 365 blood vessels from drawing nurture from the spirit of impurity. So that's our avodah today. Our avodah, the service that we do today, will transform the ultimately the whole world. Why is that? Suffusing the vital soul with Ein Sof and banishing the impure clipper from the vital soul produce a parallel effect in the entire world. Why do we have the power to transform the world if we transform ourselves? The answer the Alter Rebbe says, Ki Klal is Klal Yisrael, for the community of Israel, which comprised of Shishim Riv Neshamas Pratis, which is comprised of 600,000 particular souls, which came out of Mitzrayim. And Klalas Achayel Shakalas Elam is they are the general source and the vitality for the whole world. Why? Ki b'shvilam nivra, because the whole world was created for the sake of these souls. So each specific one of them contains, to each is related the vital of the 1/600th part of the entire world. This part of the world depends on his vital soul for its elevation to God, through the vital soul's own elevation. We should realize this concept what the Alter Rebbe is saying, because there's a famous Mishnah and it says that every Jew, it's a Pirkei Avos, every Jew must say Bishvili Nivra Ha'ilam. It's a very interesting statement in Pirkei Avos, that every person has to say the whole world. And not only the whole world, the whole purpose of the world. When it says the whole world, it doesn't mean that the whole world right now, but really the whole existence of the world is because of me. I matter. I matter not only to what's happening in the world right now, I matter to the creation of the world. The Eibishter put me in the world because I need to rectify something in this world. I have my personal shlichus, my personal agenda of rectification, something in this world. It's a very interesting concept. And that's why God brought me to the world. That I need to fix something in this world. And the question is, what is that inyan? What is that point? And that's why I don't know, and I do everything. But there's something, as the Baal Shem Tov said, a neshama can come down to the world for 70, 80 years just to do somebody else a favor. Maybe that is the point in the world that needs to be done. By my avodah. That means even though I do everything else, but there's something in this world that is there, specifically there for me. And if I don't rectify it, then I'm going to have my neshama is going to have to come down again in a different kind of way, whether it'll come down through reincarnation or have to come down itself, whatever. That's not important. Important is to know that I came to the world for a specific purpose. And that purpose is connected to my rectification. That means the whole world is waiting for my neshama to rectify that concept. And without me, Moshe Rabbeinu cannot accomplish it. The greatest righteous man cannot accomplish it. The whole world is waiting for my avodah, for that service. That's really accomplishment. When you say a person accomplished in his life, oh, he accomplished what he came to the world for, that's what we're really saying. A neshama came down for a specific concept in this world. The Eibishter doesn't send some neshama down for no purpose. There's something that this neshama, his neshama, is connected to this physical, vital part of his world. And the neshama came down for that vital situation. And it might be ben Adon LaChaverei, some, as Baal Shem Tov said, between man and man, man be between man and God. It might be, as the Baal Shem Tov said, when you pass someplace in the world has been waiting, that place where you passed, for you to say a word of Torah. So can you imagine if you passed by this place and you didn't say the word of Torah? You're going to have to, this neshama, your neshama is going to have to come down in a certain way to go by this place of the world and to say this Dvar Torah. Because that was your purpose, even though you did everything else. You didn't do that purpose. And that's really the purpose of what you're doing everything else for that. Lalis Lavai, so the part of that world depends on his vital soul for its elevation through that own elevation, through the vital soul's own elevation. That was the purpose that came down to the world. This means that one elevates his portion of the world by his partaking in this world for the requirements of his body and his vital soul in the service of God. That's it. So that's why it's very sad. A person can come down to the world, do a lot of good things, but for whatever reason, he didn't want to do this concept. And maybe that was the concept that his neshama came down to the world for. Maybe actually that was the purpose. By using the object of this world that the body and the vital soul need for the sake of serving God, one elevates his portion of the world. He not only elevates himself, he simply elevates the world. And it can be done. It could be that I need to elevate the food that I'm going to eat right now. And that was the whole purpose. Vidita was like a dwelling. All these utensils. Maybe that was the purpose. But surely there are more than 600,000 souls besides. It's impossible for one person to use a 600,000 for the entire world. The 600,000 in particular have our roots. And like the root, which grows to numerous branches, each root is subdivided into 600,000 sparks. So we have 600,000 times 600,000. Similarly, with the nefesh, ruach, in each of the four worlds of Atzilus, Bria, Tirasiyah, in each of these worlds are found all three soul levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama. So there's so many different levels upon levels upon levels upon levels, and that's why we need more Jews to accomplish this mission, because the accomplishment of this mission happens when we're going to rectify all the levels, not only in this world, we're going to transform all the worlds, from the physical world to the spiritual world, for we find the nefesh, ruach, and neshama in each of the worlds. And through our avodah, through doing our service in this world, we transform the physical of this world, we transform the spiritual in the world of Bri, Yetzirah, Asiyah. And that's what we came to the world for. The transformation of the world. And every single one of us has some aspect of capability to transform some aspect in the world. And through that, since he's connected to, he does it with his neshama, through his vital soul, it ultimately transforms all the levels of the neshama. The way the neshama is in this world, the way the neshama is in the world of Asiya, the way the neshama is in the world of Bria, etc., etc. So we should realize the importance of why our neshama came down to the world.
And for your birthday, Mashiach is coming.
Today is the 25th day of the month, which is half of chapter 119, the beginning of the chapter until the end, until the middle of the chapter 119, till the letter Mem in chapter 119. The Rebbe writes today in the 25th of Adar, as follows: the Chassid Rav Mordechai Haradoka related, the Chassid of the Alter Rebbe, that the first statement we heard from the Alter Rebbe when we arrived in Liyazna was, what is forbidden is forbidden. Who's going to argue with that? And what is permitted is unnecessary. They heard the statement. The Alter Rebbe sometimes said these one-liners. What is forbidden? And he would say it in the song. There was no, the Alter Rebbe would say it in the song. What is forbidden is forbidden. That Torah forbids you. And what is permitted is not needed. For some, 3 or 4 years were labored with this, with the statement of the Alter Rebbe. We labored on the statement until we integrated this manner of service into the various aspects of our lives. Only then, if the 2-3 years, can you imagine this? If the 2-3 years are working on this one statement of the Alter Rebbe, only then did we enter into Yechidus. We went to a private audience with the Alter Rebbe to ask him a path in our service of God. After we internalize this statement of the Alter Rebbe, we then went in and asked, okay, now that we internalize this concept that you said, what is our service to the Eibishter? I want to give you all a bracha. Today is my birthday, Chafei Adar, and I give you the power. I'm given a little bit of a power to give a bracha. It's a statement of the Tilim. David HaMelech says, today you were born, Shal Mimeni, ask me and I'll give you. So I give you all a bracha that God should bless you all, which first of all, Arichas Yamim, long life and happy life and success in life, no sickness in life, only joy in life, and may you all be blessed with everything that you need, and self-understood to those that are suffering by Jews, whether they are in captivity, whether they are in sickness, whether they are destitute money-wise, God should fulfill all their desires, and ultimately we should merit the most important bracha to the coming of Mashiach. The Mashiach should come and take us out of this gullus and redeem the Jewish nation from all its suffering and have a revelation of God in the world. As the Alter Rebbe said today, that all flesh will see, and let's hope and we'll merit to that. Speedily in our days, Be'ezat Hashem today. God bless.